Music in the hospital is an act of humanization, of emotion and pleasure exchanged, of gestures and gazes. One builds through gatherings between musicians, patients, attendants at the hospital. It creates partnership and interaction dynamic between health and culture professionals.
Alouette, gentille alouette, alouette, je te plumerai. Alouette, gentille alouette, alouette, je te plumerai. Je te plumerai le bec, je te plumerai le bec. Et le bec, alouette, 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 gentille alouette, alouette, je te plumerai.
Il faut avant tout deux compétences.
In order to be able to work in a hospital, two abilities, but true ones, are necessary. First, the ability of the musician. That is, his ability to perform with musical instruments, as well as with his voice. The second ability is the ability to relate, to give meaning to the musical gestures towards the other. That's not so easy. It's not just a question of goodwill, just the intention to relate, but learning to look, to place oneself in space, to adapt one's work to a situation. We have had record players in the hospital for many years, but the arrival of musicians is an introduction of life, of people with their own personalities and feelings, offering a deeper contact with the children. There is also an exchange between musicians, parents, and children, but mainly between the music and the expression of the children's eyes, between the music and their smiles. Live music offers in this sense much more than any musical equipment.
Est bien supérieur à un simple magnétophone.
Une souris verte qui courait dans l'herbe, je l'attrape par la queue, je la montre à ces messieurs me disent, trempez-la dans l'huile, trempez-la dans l'eau, ça deviendra un escargot tout chaud. Je la mets dans mon tiroir, elle me dit qu'il fait trop noir, je la mets dans mon chapeau, elle me dit qu'il fait trop chaud, je la mets dans ma culotte, elle me fait trois petites crottes. Sous le vent du bleu de l'arbre du damier, un ami de peine, mon arbre de liberté. La jeunesse dont je n'y croyais pas, tu m'appartenais et tu me
In the hospital in general, when there is a musician around, you notice that there is a special attention, an improvement in the communication, an attention to anything that is a kind of noise. Therefore, music in the hospital is not just a sound that could be produced by a radio or a music broadcast into the rooms, but rather the musician or player is very important in the way that he or she integrates into hospital life. As such, the musician is not just someone who plays, but a professional who knows the music and knows how to adapt it, integrate it with the various moments of the therapy and health care within the hospital at any given time.
poissons dans l'eau nagent aussi bien que les gros.
Training is important, and I always tell my colleagues how important it is. We are nurses from different wards, and we share many things. We go from room to room, caressing the babies as we sing. It's magical. It cannot be described in words. It's simply magical.
Tartaruga nel mare va perché, ma perché, si bagna e poi si asciuga dai tempi di Noè.
I am absolutely overwhelmed by what I just saw, by the incredible gift of the musician to speak directly through his music and through his ability as a teacher and as a human being to the soul of the children. This musician was appealing to the fact that children need to play and children need to learn, even when they're in the hospital, maybe especially when they're in the hospital, in ways that really took, from what I understand, a great deal of preparation and learning. It doesn't just happen, but it looks like it just happens. It looks like it's just a simple game. And at the end of this short little thing that we just saw, the children are completely changed. And the parents, you can see the parents have a load off their shoulders, if only for a few minutes.
Avec quoi faut-il la faucher, chère Élise, avec quoi faut-il la faucher?
Avec une faux. Avec la faux, chère Eugène, avec la faux.
Ce qui se passe entre les...
What happens between the musicians and older people is very different from just music and sound. It is an encounter, and I experienced this as an exceptional meetings. I would call this an instant of grace. An instant of grace because it is extraordinary what takes place.
J'ai plus qu'une oreille, ne me la cassez pas encore.
Comme intensité, comme...
As awakening the person, as reawakening the person. What was asleep comes back to life. It is not therapy, it is simply life which takes its place back. Life as it once was, in its dimension of the child, in its dimension of youth. The music plan in the geriatric services always aims to bring the profoundly human dimension into the hospital environment. People who are hospitalized are cut off, on the one hand, from a diverse affective mobility, and on the other, from the richness of social relationships.
Diversifié et en rupture d'une grande richesse des relations sociales.
Alouette, gentille alouette, alouette, je te plumerai. Dans les jardins de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris.
Dans les jardins de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris.
Tous les oiseaux du monde viennent faire nos nids.
Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir. Qui chante pour les filles, qui n'ont pas de peine.
Pour moi ne chante guère, car j'en ai un joli. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir. Meninas, vamos a vida, ai, vida, dançadora vida, ai, as meninas de Lisboa. Mira, mira,
Samati oulé, didi samati oulé. A yogoli mato, didi yogoli mato fouet. A yogoli mato, didi yogoli mato fouet.
Quand je dis ça m'amuse parce que justement, vous voyez bien, ça peut chasser les papillons noirs, voyez-vous.
Je vais plutôt rechercher avec.
With older people, I would rather search for a look, a smile, or a touch. I look for an emotion which can be shared. The slightest detail counts for old people. I've learned how to surprise, which I didn't know before. You have to, in order to attract their attention. If a patient is withdrawn, I'm going to try to surprise her, to capture her attention. And from that moment on, one can enter into communication. And the moments that follow are often magical.
Laquelle la tourterelle et la jolie perdrix. Laquelle la tourterelle et la jolie perdrix. Et ma jolie colombe qui chante jour et nuit. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde, qu'il fait bon dormir.
For me, it's a big change from the everyday, that's for sure. We do not have the pleasure of having things like this, music in the rooms. It's absolutely outside of the daily routine. What we see, it's the leg problem, the arm problem, because these are not things that we usually do. We have an everyday relationship of the one who treats, the one who is treated, the one who treats the sick one, the one who treats the resident, and during these moments here, this relationship disappears. It leaves room for another type of exchange, which is emotional, which is very, very good.
Ça craint rien.
J'ai pas de force suffisamment. C'est très très agréable.
je trouve aussi.
Une chanson qui vous ferait plaisir?
Les feuilles d'automne. Ah, je voudrais tant que tu te souviennes. Les jours heureux où nous étions amis. En ce temps-là, la vie était plus belle et le soleil plus brûlant qu'aujourd'hui. Les feuilles mortes se ramassaient à la pelle. Tu vois, je n'ai pas oublié la chanson que tu me chantais. C'est une chanson qui nous ressemble. Moi je t'aimais et tu m'aimais et nous allions tous deux ensemble. Moi qui t'aimais, toi qui m'aimais.
Étant en institution, l'environnement sonore est extrêmement...
In an institution, the sound environment is extremely reduced. Musicians must be able to recreate imaginary sound environments, which can be made up of the most diverse sounds, to surround the patients with sounds, with little sounds, with astonishing sounds.
Estou fazendo compasso.
I just want to end this discussion with a wish that Winnicott formulated when he said, "My God, let me be alive until the day that I die." And I feel like saying that music can be this challenge. In geriatrics, it can correspond to that precious string of that humanistic harp which can make life vibrate.
De cette harpe humaniste pour faire vibrer la vie.
J'ai descendu dans mon jardin, j'ai descendu dans mon